Yo, hopefully we're going live. I think we live. Welcome everyone. This is your boy JC, bringing you another live debate, live show. Hope everybody's well. Hopefully this and the Pavlov was that's cool. Live. All right, nice one. Okay, excellent. We'll share the link. Come Bible to the excellent. Coming play press button. Yeah, I think we got the I think we like. Yeah, okay, fam. Yeah, share the link, invite your friends, all that good stuff. Cool. So today we are having a live debate on sorry fam, I don't know what happened there. Is a topic for today's live debate. So I've invited Pavlov, who's an agnostic atheist, and he is going to be debating a sister Kay, obviously a Christian, and they will expand upon the the Christian depiction of Satan. He has many titles. He goes by the title of deceiver, devil, dragon, enemy, tempter, thief, serpent of old, son of perdition, power of darkness, prince of the power of the air, Lucifer, liar, lawless one, evil one, enemy, etc. So I do hope that our debaters can expand upon this. So let me just welcome Pavlov, who just joined us. Hello, Pablo. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you can hear me, and I hope the family can also hear you.
Hello. I can hear you. How's it going?
Yeah, going well. Just recovering from a hay fever, but all good in the.
From the hay fever, right? Well, I hope the people can hear me a bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some trouble in the connection, bro.
Cool, excellent. So I'm going to
yours.
Let me see. Maybe it's the very bad connection. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, excellent. Let's just work with this. I did have some problem with the internet lately, so hopefully this shouldn't be a distraction and we can get on with the debate. Sis K, let me bring you in.
Hello, I'm just sitting right in front of the camera, it seems. Okay, what's happening? Right.
Yeah, let me actually get in. How are you, sis? Welcome.
I'm good. I'm like pondering. I don't know. I've been looking at some stuff about Satan, and I'm wondering what Pavlov's going to argue, but much disagreement really, unless he's going to be moral, and then game over. But yeah, so the signal was really bad a minute ago, and now it's kind of average, so that's good. I just nearly smoked on the camera. Shut. And I just nearly lifted a cigarette to my mouth on camera.
Don't do that. That's haram. That's haram.
It's a good job I'm kosher then. Yeah. Anyway, now Jacob's frozen, so I don't know. I think.
All right, here we are. Look.
Okay, so the internet I think is okay. Let's just get on with this. Sorry, bear with me, please, guys. Bear with me, so I can.
Yeah,
I will give the floor to you guys, and you can just go and debate. So yeah, I just want to establish the format for this discussion. I suggested to Kay whether you would, if you would like 10 or 15 minutes of intro each, but she suggested that your 15 or 20 minutes or whatever you want to take to do your introduction, that you should be the one who makes the introduction, and then we move on to rebuttals, point rebuttals, and then crossfires, quick crossfires. So I just want to know if you agree with this. If I mean, yeah, do you need 10 minutes for your intro? 50 minutes? No time? Up to you guys. But I really want a time debate, ideally for 1 hour, from the moment that you guys debate, and then we can wrap this up. So up to you, Pablo. What would you like? What would you like to do?
It's basically whatever suits you guys best. I can make part of any structure that you prefer. So for me, you know, you guys decide however you prefer.
Okay, I guess I would prefer you to do like maybe not 10 minutes necessarily, but like a 5-minute introduction to your conception of Christian depiction. And then I can hopefully, like I'm not an expert at all, but I can hopefully help you like discern what's Christian and what's just cultural, I guess.
Right. So I assume there's some questions why I picked.
Cool. Okay. So we'll pass. Wait. Sorry, Pablo.
Go ahead. No problem.
I just don't wanna sort of like disrupt the conversation. Okay. So we've established that you're going to do the 5-minute introduction, or take as long as you want to take. Yeah, to make sure that you cover your areas, and then we move on to 5 minutes of rebuttals. So we can maybe do like 4 rounds of 5 minutes rebuttals, and then we can do crossfires afterwards. Take questions from the family, and then do a conclusion from both sides. If you guys are happy with that, then we can just go ahead. Cool.
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Okay, Pablo. So the floor is yours. The mic is yours, and let's have a good discussion.
Thank you. So you know, this is an unusual thing to start a debate about, because I myself don't believe in Satan as an entity. Again, because I don't believe in God. So seeing that I don't believe in God, I also don't believe in Satan. Oh, that's a better view, honestly.
Yeah, shot of your book.
Yeah, shows the cover of my book, The Devil's Game, on Amazon, £3, guys. The preview is free. Shilling time, quick shilling time. Anyway, shilling's over. So speaking of which, you know, in my book I use the devil many times as symbolism, because there are many symbols linked to the devil in Christian mythology, and also in I mean, I would call it mythology, for other people would call it something else. Also in Jewish and Muslim mythology, Satan is depicted slightly differently. And you know, from my knowledge, from what I know, humans depict entities that are malevolent with things that are inherently fearful to them. For example, the shape of the dragon. You know, the dragon has that shape because humans have a genetic fear of snakes. They learned how to find and react quickly with fear to things slithering in the grass, because through human existence, you know, all the humans that didn't amass that genetic trait simply died off, because snakes are pretty dangerous, as we all know. You know, the wings of a falcon or of a hawk or of an eagle, humans feared that in their first stages of existence. The body of a jaguar or the body of a lion, a reptilian guise, they're all predators, all very dangerous beings that humans have learned to fear. That's the shape of the dragon. That's why humans apply that shape usually to the dragon. Of course, it has slightly different variations from culture to culture, but it's more or less the same. Now, the devil is interesting because I heard this story about the sacking of the first temple, of the first Jewish temple. And as far as I know, it was sacked by the Sumerians. And you know, the ancient Sumerians, their gods were pagans, as you probably know. And their gods, for them, a mark of divinity was to have horns. Their kings wore horned crowns, and their gods had horns, which for them was a sign of divinity. So perhaps, the devil having horns is a sign that is coming from, the faith in which Christianity got inspired, which is Judaism, because, of course, the Bible comes before Jesus. Many parts of the Bible, in fact, most parts of the Bible come before Jesus, from the Torah. The Torah and the Bible share some texts, as you well know of it. So I would say, from my perspective, that the devil has that specific guise because of a lot of Jewish influence in Christianity. That's why the devil looks like a horned entity, because of that hatred for the Sumerians who sacked the first temple of the Jews. But what I wanted to discuss the most about the devil, this is just for me to finish this introduction, is the symbolism, and is the you know, it is an idea that I had actually, that if you believe in the God and in the devil, in a way you are you are admitting devil's existence. You are contributing for the devil's existence more than somebody who doesn't believe in, at least from my perspective. But then again, for you it's probably an acknowledgement of truth and not just an existence by faith, as it is for me.
Okay. Is it my go?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, cool. So now, guys,
Yeah.
for those of you who just joined us, okay, so thank you for that intro, Pablo. And now we're going to go on to a 5-minute rebuttal to the points you made by Sis K.
Okay,
Your 5 minutes starts now. Okay.
Thank you. It's not so much of a rebuttal. I just want to clarify a few points. So the representation within Christianity, I mean, for example, God himself describes Satan, and he does that in Ezekiel 28, verses 12 to 18. And he says, "Thus says the Lord God, you had the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. And the precious stone was your covering, the ruby, the topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the lapis lazuli, the turquoise, and the emerald, and the gold. The workmanship of your settings and sockets was in you. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. You were the anointed cherub who covers, and I placed you there. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked in the midst of the stones of fire. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you." So that's God himself, whether you believe in God or not. That's the words attributed to the Most High God, describing Satan as something that was created in perfection, completely. Basically, I think that the stones and it's detailing his perfection until the day when unrighteousness was found in him. So I would say that when, over the years, when artists and painters have come to depict Satan or Lucifer, because even though he has two names, he is in essence the same being, they found it difficult to do so from the Bible. The Bible calls him the accuser, which is Hebrew Satan, basically. So it's his actions that make him Satan. It's the change in his essence, his rebellion from God, and his drawing away approximately a third of the other angels in this rebellion. So he's mentioned heavily in Ezekiel, Revelation. There are attributes ascribed to him. He tempts himself, but nowhere does it say he has horns, apart from in Revelation when he's described as the dragon. But when they're referencing Satan himself, as it were, in his angelic form or in his earthly, he didn't come to Christ as a dragon. He came as a humanoid like life form. And so I'd like to draw a heavy distinction between the artwork of some crazy Germans in the 18th century and the rest of Christianity, because even if these people were Christian, I hear what you're saying about the horns, but I would argue that a lamb has horns, a ram has horns. I don't think that necessarily horns are a symbol of malevolence. I know that the pagan, one of the demigods, Pan, has horns, and he's often attributed as a precursor or as a shadowing of Satan, and yet he has antlers rather than horns. He's not really malevolent, he's just mischievous. So again, a distinction between artwork and the Bible. I'm going to go through some more verses. How long do I have, JC? Okay, I'm going to read you maybe one more description.
Minute.
Yeah, all right.
And
so
50 seconds.
Excellent. All right, so if I can find it, would be lovely. So, all right, so maybe I'll just waffle on. In Revelation, it says that another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns on his heads with 7 diadems, and his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. That's referencing the other angels who fell with Satan. So I guess my issue would be that his depiction isn't strong enough to justify the artwork that's been attributed to Christianity. It's not, in fact, Christianity. It's artistic license in the extreme. There are atheists, as yourself, representing Satan in drawings and in poetry and music. So I would say I don't have to defend their position. And that's me. I didn't ask you any questions, but you'll be fine. Mute yourself.
I will.
Okay, cool. So your 5 minutes, you got 30 seconds, Kate, unless you don't want to use it.
Okay, I would say stick with Christianity, if at all possible. The primordial psychology that you spoke of, I understand that as a means of some sort of arbitrary explanation, but I don't accept it because snakes in other major world religions are venerated and seen as gods. Maybe you could say that was a respect for them, but also cats were venerated and worshipped as gods. They don't have any horns, nor are they reptilian, nor are they very frightening if they come in the tabby variety. So, yeah, my question to you would be, where do you draw your inference that this is Christian-backed or Christian depiction? Exactly what it says in the title. How is it a Christian depiction other than Bible verses? Where do you find those?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Kay. Pablo, your 5 minutes starts when you're ready to.
Nice. I'm ready. Right. So you're asking me about the depiction of different countries, in different nations, in different civilizations of snakes. Some nations actually do venerate snakes. For example, the Aztecs, the ancient Aztecs, had a god called Quetzalcoatl, which is the plumed serpent god. They used to sacrifice people to him and also to the sun god. But either way, people make different conclusions about the specific entities that they have. Some people have entities that they choose to fear. Some entities are purely the object of fear of the specific person, of the specific civilization. For example, the Greeks, the Romans, all the pagans, they had specific gods that they saw as more benevolent, and specific gods that they saw more malevolent. But they saw all of them as a necessity. You know what I mean? Now, with a monotheistic God, that changes because all of the benevolence goes to God and all of the malevolence goes to the devil, as we all know. Now, about the description of the dragons, some people chose to interpret the dragons differently. Now that we're talking about Satan, and Satan was depicted as a dragon in the Bible, as you described before. For example, the Chinese, they venerated dragons. They venerated them as a symbol of power. When the Europeans feared the dragons as a symbol of destruction. When, again, the Aztecs, for example, for them, the plumed serpent was akin of a dragon. And it was, again, worshipped. So the conclusion is different, but the dragon is a symbol of fear. Now, whether people choose to submit to that fear or to fight that fear, that's depends on the specific society. For example, the Chinese Empire functioned on one specific ruler, uniting all of the different kingdoms in China. Some situations they had, for example, the Three Kingdoms War. They had some situations, some upheaval, some how should I say, some internal strife, right? But mostly it was one ruler. Now in Europe, for example, it was very different. Europe was very, very rarely united. In fact, most of the time it was disunited. And I think that would be the reason, the mentality of the people themselves. The Europeans have more of an individualistic worldview. When, for example, in China, people in terms of society had a more, how should I say this? A more societal worldview, a more in terms of union in a society, cohesion. When in Europe, it's more about the individual. It's more about, the individual rights and all that stuff. So it all depends really how each culture decides to venerate the entity, which in Christianity is an absolute entity, is an absolute entity of God. But there was the necessity of the devil in Christianity because of the existence of malevolence. So that should be applied to something. And so in a way, Christians and Muslims and Jews, to a certain extent, as I said before, even though it's with hatred, even though it's with disdain, it's in a way an acceptance of the existence of the devil. You know what I mean? Do I have any time left, or have I exceeded it?
Yeah, by all means, go ahead. You still go a minute and 30 seconds.
Fair enough. I'll give it to Kay now then.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Right,
let me pause there for a second, Kay, so I can
I feel like I'm on
Start the,
countdown. Okay. I'll have
yeah. Cool.
two
Start.
minutes,
Having starts
please.
now.
Okay, so there's quite a few things. I'd like to disregard everything about the Mayans, the Aztecs. That I would like to focus on the Christian depiction of Satan, because that's what we've chosen for a topic. I would say that when you say that there is a need within Judaism and Christianity to attribute malevolence to a being, Cain was told by God himself that sin is crouching at your door. He didn't say Satan's waiting for you. He did. It's not a the devil made me do it kind of thing. Also, in your previous opening statement, you implied, I can't remember your wording, but you made it sound as if belief, you said people who believe in it, like make it more real, something along those lines. And I would say that's the exact opposite of what happens. God, for me, inspires belief in himself by being the truth. So the nearer you get to the truth, the more evident, in my worldview, in my opinion, God is. Satan is not a necessary character, in as much as God created him as an angel and as the most powerful angel, the most perfect of God's creation prior to humanity, is what we see in the Bible. He's stronger than Michael, than Gabriel. He is God's favored or like perfect cherub. He's described as a cherub. And as we know, the artistic representation of cherubs is little fat naked babies, like, I don't know if they have nappies on or fig leaves or what they have. I don't think Satan looks like that at all. We're told in the Bible, and I can't remember the verse, but that's often the case with me, thank goodness for Google sometimes, is that anybody who does not have the Holy Spirit cannot confess Christ as Lord. And those who do not confess Christ as Lord are of their father, like they're lying, basically, because Christ is Lord. And it sounds quite harsh, but God can be that. You also said that, where am I? You said, right, malevolence needs to be, there needs to be I can't think of the word, an anthropomorphic personification of malevolence. And I would say that the Lord God says, vengeance is mine. So if we think of vengeance as a malevolent intention, God says that that is his alone. If we think of hatred as a malevolent emotion or state of affairs, God says, these are the 6 things that I hate, and the 7th is an abomination unto me. So God isn't exclusively benevolent at all, one bit. He hates, he detests sin, he finds it loathsome, and it's sin that is actually crouching at Cain's door. In other words, God is saying, I foresee that you will do this terrible thing. Like, you haven't done it yet. I've cursed your parents, and I've cursed the ground and all of your mother's descendants, and yet I don't see Satan tempting you. I see sin crouching at your door, and sin is given its own personification. Basically, it's tempting him without reference to Satan, who's already been referenced quite heavily. He's been cursed to the ground to slither around and bite at heels and get stamped down in a foreshadowing of the crucifixion and Christ. So to sum that up, belief doesn't equal strength in terms of God. God would still be as glorious, mighty, and of justified gloriousness without the belief of one single person. There will come a time on earth, I believe, when no one will believe in God because of the rapture will have happened. The Holy Spirit will be absent, and those people who are left may still come to Christ in the tribulation. But the absence of belief does not affect God one bit. He desires all who are called to come to him, but he doesn't need belief. He doesn't need anything. He's completely self-sufficient. I think I'll leave it there because I've got some other points, but I would ask you, please stick to Christianity. Christianity, you described it as a culture. I would say it's much more than a culture, although cultural aspects have been engrafted into it, because unlike other world religions, it seeks not to dominate and subdue cultures that are already existent, with their own pagan roots and Celtic stuff, like in terms of Britain. But it comes and it works on the hearts of individuals, and therefore the imagery and the artistic license that those individuals have, we don't seek to denounce them. We don't have fatwas or stuff like that. You can say Satan's like a really hot guy, you can say he's a woman, you can say he's got red tights on and a pitchfork. It doesn't matter, like, basically.
Cool. Thank you for that, Kay.
Right.
Pablo, your 5 minutes starts now.
Fair enough. Let's stick to Christianity then. Let's not stray too much to the other religions. Let's stick to Christianity. But still, you know, even if we speak about Christianity, we need to necessarily mention other worldviews. You know, that's the big problem here, because Christianity is not the only worldview, and there are many different worldviews. And considering that you see the truth as your God, it must necessarily mean that you see the worldviews of others who don't follow that God as lies. You know, go against that truth of God, go against that absolute justice. And, you know, there's some problems with absolution that I'm sure that you have noticed, but by this point, by the many discussions I've had in Speaker's Corner and many different things that I said and that I have spoken about, is that I think that absolution, you know, this absolute idea of truth is a paradox, because humans are finite beings. Now, the thing that I get called out with quite often, to my surprise, because I'm not sure what people think they're gaining with that specific remark, is that they ask me if I'm sure about that. Well, no, I'm not sure, because I am a human. I am a human, and thus I am finite. I make a judgment out of probability, because I've seen myself fail. I've seen myself be wrong in the past. I've seen myself have flawed knowledge. So out of probability, I assume that I am flawed. Which I'm sure you will think is a reasonable assumption. And I'm sure you made the same assumption about yourself. I don't think anybody will claim that they are never wrong, and then unless, you know, of course, they're egomaniacs. There are people like those, you know, there are people who think they're always right. But I just don't think we should be those people, because they, ironically, the people who think they're always right are the most wrong of all, because they don't realize how finite they are and how, you know, how they can be wrong. You know, because conviction is a strength, usually, unless conviction implies the lack of understanding of your possible improvement. Because if you can't improve in the future, you remain the same way. You remain with the same flaws. You remain with the same problems that you have. And, you know, I see humanity in a state of perpetual change, a perpetual state of evolution, both in terms of body and in terms of mind. As you are well aware of, I see a religion itself as a tool of societal cohesion. So I'm definitely not in a camp that, you know, of atheists who want to remove religion. What I want to do is something different. What I want to do is to help people understand religion better, and to understand that it's not an absolute. If it helps them live, if it gives them happiness, if it gives them cohesion in a society, excellent. That's a great tool. That's why, you know, most countries in the world have religions. That's why most people in the world had religions, because it's useful for society. Even though some people might say it's not. It is useful. But, you know, that's my main point. My main point is to let people see that even if they convince themselves that they are absolutely correct about something, they're still human in the end. And I think religion is not free from that criticism.
Still got a minute and 20 seconds, Pavlov.
That's fine. I overexceeded my time you know, on the last speech, so I'll give my time to Kay.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that, Pavlov. Let me reset the timer. And Kay, 5 minutes starts now.
Okay, I'll forgive you for going over your time, because that's what Christians do. Okay, so absolution, you made an incorrect definition. It basically is a formal release from punishment or guilt. You also, interestingly, and I heard Ben's voice.
Sorry, that's absolution. That's absolution.
You said absolution.
Yes, absolution.
Absolution is a formal release from your guilt or punishment.
No, that's absolution.
No, it's absolution. I've got it up on my screen. That's the dictionary definition. Maybe it's a different word that you were thinking of. So I'm going to continue. So I heard Ben's voice in my mind when you said people who believe they're always right must be wrong, because I heard Ben say, what do you mean wrong? There's no absence of truth. There's no opposite of truth. So how can anything be wrong? I appreciate what you're saying about always being right. But then you mentioned that like followers of religion are still human, and I very much agree with that. However, you spoke about conviction, and the Holy Spirit is the one who convicts Christians. And even though we are still human, we have the words of God. Whether you believe in him or not, we believe them to be the words of God, and we believe God to be the truth. So in that respect, there are plenty of things that God says and does that are troubling to humans, because oftentimes prophets alongside regular people who nobody wants to be convicted of their sin. It's not a nice feeling at all, It's like really like sickening to be fully convicted by the Spirit of your sin. So therefore, it's not a narrative that is, I would say, beneficial to human psychology, because as we know, humans want to justify their behaviors, to not take the morally superior route, but to basically, C.S. Lewis describes it as the higher self, or the higher, like an abstract and external morality that we measure ourselves up to. Because if we walk past an old lady who's fallen in the snow and nobody's there to see us, and we just carry on walking, that's often the course that we want to take, the path of least resistance. But the fact that we would lay awake at night potentially and berate ourselves for not having helped shows that we have an intrinsic knowledge of good and evil, also negating the need for Satan if you're just attributing to him a personification of evil. I think that the Bible tells us our hearts are desperately wicked above all else, and that Christ gives us a new heart, meaning new capacity for love and understanding and discernment. So where I would differ massively with your worldview is that I don't. Oh, right. I'm going to cut that to the end. But what is your problem with the do you have a problem with the depiction of Satan? Because in the Middle Ages, people like, let me get my list up. So Hieronymus Bosch, Albrecht Dürer, Hendrik Gold, they're all Germans. I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to slate Germans, but basically they had artistic depiction also, in the 15th and 16th century, and, Dante's Inferno from the 14th century. So basically none of them are scriptural. So my issue, I guess, with arguing about the depiction of Satan is you've got to separate it out into human without religion. So you've got, if the Holy Spirit works on your heart and you can therefore see spiritual truths, you could, in your own mind, you could see Christ how you like. Some people see him as black, as white, as, lesser than the angels in his heavenly state, or as the Word or the eternal Son, or merely as the 33 years of manhood that he enjoyed, as it were. We can also see Satan the same way. If someone is speaking to your heart, your human mind and psychology will attribute to them detestable things if they make you feel not very nice about yourself. Satan is the accuser. So when I wake up in the mornings, if I haven't said my prayers yet, my mind will be just berating me about things that I've said, things that I've done. Why am I doing this with my life? Why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I praying yet? Why am I smoking a cigarette at this time of the morning? That kind of thing, is, I can easily personify that out. And when I do, I'm not going to give it a lovely little halo and some wings. Although we are told that angels rather, are described as having 4 wings and 4 faces, covered in eyeballs, the face of a lion, the face of a human, the face of this, that, the other. Satan is an angel, and therefore he most probably biblically has that description. And yet, thank you, in artistic depictions, he doesn't have that, because no one's had the front to go to the Bible and paint what they see. I haven't got any questions for you, but we'll just chat.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Gay. Pavlov, your 5 minutes. Third round rebuttals starts now.
Yeah, look, you're right about the definition of the word absolution. When I said it, I meant something that is absolute. But you're right about the actual technical definition. It is to absolve from something, from the sins, to remove the sins from somebody. You're right about that. But what I meant is, to make an idea, make an absolute idea in your mind that's unquestionable, that's infinite, blah, 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 all that stuff. Now, about the depiction of Satan. Notice that when I gave this theme to discuss, I didn't say the physical depiction of Satan, because it also has a lot to do with the metaphorical depiction of Satan. And the metaphorical depiction of Satan, as you said, is the enemy. And that's one of the main points of my book. Why is it called the devil's game? Because people live their lives when seeing their specific ideology and their worldview as godly, as absolutely good, as something great, as something better. And they see the enemy, the people who oppose that worldview, who oppose that absolute truth, as the devil, as the enemy, as Satan, as you're very well aware of the many disagreements between different religions. And the point about Satan that I wanted to make, and the reason why I was mentioning different cultures and different faiths, is the main reason, the main reason why I myself am no longer Christian, because I was Christian when I was younger in Ukraine. I was Orthodox Christian. I was pretty zealous, actually. I used to go to atheist videos and to troll them in the comments. But yeah, the main reason why I decided not to do it is because I saw how many people are convinced that their ideals are godly and the ideals of the others are devilish. The ideals of the enemy are devilish. Now, the conclusion that I made out of that is that all of those people are convinced their truth is absolute and the truth of others are lies. So best case scenario, one of those people, one of every single people in the world who believe in an absolute truth, got it right, and all the others got it absolutely wrong. Or, in worst case scenario, none of them got it right, and they're all lying to themselves, convincing themselves that they got all the answers figured out, the faith figured out, this is the God, this is what he says, this is what we need to do. That's the main reason why I gave this, this theme about the conversation, because of the idea of this is what I call in my book, the idea of the hero and the villain. People feel good when they see themselves as the good guys and the enemies as the bad guys. And everyone is evil, God is the only good, God is the only one that can transform the hearts of men. Well, this kind of contributes to my point. God is good. God is absolutely good. The devil is bad. The devil is absolutely bad. Now, we apply what is God and what is the devil to the things in our real life. And seeing that we are finite, I think you'll agree that we can't apply that for sure. Even if those definitions actually existed, even if the idea of God and the devil existed, applying them to the real world is always an approximation. It's not an absolution, not an absolute. Excuse me. Repeat the word absolution again. But yeah, let me just repeat my point, so you know what I'm questioning here. I'll quickly summarize it. So there are many people who believe that they got the right answers to everything, or at least in terms of God, that they got the right answer to it. Those many people have different ideas of God, which leads to the conclusion that either only one of them is correct in the best case scenario, or none of them is correct in worst case scenario. So how would you answer to that? Would you say that everybody else has it wrong and you have the only right deduction? Or would you say that you're still finite in your perception of God?
Okay, so I'm going to get to that part at the end. As I was listening, I was just jotting down some stuff. So when you say they're lying to themselves, I would just counter that by saying God is lying to them in your interpretation of that, because they're reading the word of God. Christ is also the word of God alongside the Bible. Satan is described as the God, even though it's a lowercase g, of this system. So whereby evil is ascribed to him, he is both the representative and an artistic representation of evil. He alone is not evil, whereas God alone is good. So we are already in a fallen state. We are already deceitfully and desperately wicked in our hearts. We don't have the capacity for any goodness. In Galatians, we see that the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, is the one who conforms us to the image of Christ, the perfect man and God. Like, as in, he is God. We're not we're just conformed to the image of Christ. So my other points were, you spoke about protagonists and antagonists, as in goodies and baddies. And you said everybody wants to see themselves as the hero. That's simply not the case. I always identified with the baddies. I always wanted to be a baddie. Like, often when I first read the Bible as a less strong Christian than I am now, I felt terribly sorry for Cain. I had a lot of sympathy for him, also for Eve and Adam. I pretty much pitied the devil as well, and I still do, because ultimately he will not prevail and he will be cast down even lower than he is already. I think that it's a shame, but that he is a perfect illustration of what happens when you rebel against an all-loving God. So when I say all-loving, obviously I'm not negating the hate that God can have for certain things, but because he is perfect, he is able to carry that those emotions without them being in conflict with each other. So to answer your question, even would I say that I wouldn't say I am right alone, because obviously I'm not the only Christian. I would say that Christianity as a cultural phenomenon certainly doesn't get everything right, but I would say that the true church, which is founded on the blood of the martyrs, which is each stone of the kingdom of Christ is a saint. You know, those who are chosen and are called by God will answer. So where you said you were previously a Christian, you know, don't hedge your bets in that you can't be snatched from the Father's hand. So if you were truly repentant and believed and confessed and all of those other requirements, you may find that, God willing, you are able to find your way back to salvation. Because I have held atheistic beliefs in the past, and I couldn't reconcile them with the fact that I am not a finite being. Neither are you, neither is JC, neither is anybody in the chat, as far as I'm aware, unless there are any bots there, because we are infinite also. We have an eternal soul with which we will praise God or suffer the punishment and the non-absolution of Jesus Christ when he comes to judge. So I guess wrapping up that part of what I'm saying, we are not finite. God is not finite. The characters in the Bible, the people, I should say, and the supernatural persons in the Bible are not necessarily black and white, clear cut. Satan himself is not a wholly reprehensible character, because he is also Lucifer originally. He is designed, and his purpose is not to cause strife. Although we know that sin entered the world through one man. It wasn't, Lucifer didn't drag it out of Adam and Eve. He tempted them only. He beguiled them, bedazzled them. He tricked them. Basically, he just gave them, like he was an agitator. He just came in and said, what, you believe that? What do you mean? So, I mean, and everybody's got that voice in them as well. Well, maybe it's just me and I should take medication. But the little voice that accuses you, that says, why are you telling the truth anyway? Why don't you just, like, it's easier to just lie a little bit. It's only a tiny little lie. And then it snowballs and snowballs. And before you know it, you're a former Christian, I guess. So to wrap it up again, because I'm a bit of a chatter, I'm going to pray for you, Pavlov, whether you like it or not, because I don't work for the NHS. I won't get the sack. Yeah, I would like to chat to you more about religion. I don't think Satan is a religion. I think these idiots who are Satanists and were like, that's just some Californian nonsense. They're smoking some good stuff over there, I guess. But I'm waffling. JC, stop me, for goodness sake. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So you're done. Thank you for that, Kay. So we've done four rounds of rebuttal for Kay, and Pablo has only done 3 rounds of rebuttal. So this will be your 4th round of rebuttal, guys. And then we'll go to we do crossfires.
Fair enough.
Yeah, cool. All right, Pablo, your 5 minutes starts now.
I have to say that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. You know, but I have to disagree with your assumption about the snowballing lies. It's not as simple as saying, I'm lying, I'm telling the truth.
Is that the truth?
Complex than that. It's more complex than that. Okay. You know, as Marcus Aurelius said in his book, The Meditations, which I would recommend to anybody in this chat to read, everything you hear is an opinion, not the truth. Everything you see is a perspective. No, everything you hear is a opinion, not a fact. Everything you see is a perspective, not the truth. I completely ruined it, but you get the point. Again, everything you hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything you see is a perspective, not the truth. Which results in my personal quote, which I like to say, which is, truth is perception, and perception is the only truth. Now, you will say, yeah, I feel there's lots of people who are thinking in their heads, is that the absolute truth? Well, if you're looking for the absolute truth, I would say, in my humble opinion, that you're already doing something wrong. I looked for the absolute truth for a considerable amount of my life when I was younger. But I realized that the limitations of humans and the very limitations of our perception of existence don't allow us to perceive an absolute truth, even if it exists. Now, what I'm saying right now is based on my perception, which I admit is not perfect, which means, by definition, that what I'm saying is not an absolute truth. Even if I say I'm absolutely and utterly certain about this specific thing, you should not trust that, because I am human, because I am a finite being, and because I can be wrong. Now, that is the advice I would give to anybody who would ask me that question, who would ask me, are you sure of that? I'm not sure of that, but there's a very good likelihood that I am right, because I have done a lot of thinking, a lot of research, and a lot of different things to achieve the knowledge that I have right now. So I would say that it's a very likely knowledge, but I will not call it absolute, because once again, my ideology is against that. It's against the idea of absolute knowledge, because I want people to improve. I want people to evolve their ideas all the time. Now, unfortunately, I wanted to answer to something else that you said, but at this point, when I was answering this part, I kind of forgot what specifically was the other thing that I wanted to answer to. Yeah, so let me focus more on the lies that we say. People tell lies to themselves and to each other all the time, and sometimes we don't even notice that. No, and in my book, I specify the 3 different kinds of useful lies to yourself. 3 different kinds of lies that we should learn with. The first one is the trained agent. There are stories of trained agents that, when captured by the enemy, would be able to fool the detector of lies, because they have such a great control over their own mind and body that they can, on the spot, make their body reaction and make their mind show the reaction that they're telling the truth. They can bend their mind to their own will. The second kind of those people, of useful lies to yourself, are the actors. The actors are a very interesting kind of people. In fact, I was an actor when I was in Portugal. I sometimes still do some acting, occasionally. But the actor, a good actor, he has the power to convince himself that he's a character on stage. Now, it doesn't always work the same way with all actors, of course. All actors have their own specific, different methodology to it. But, the crux of it, the zenith of the whole question of acting, is to convince yourself on stage, is to have fun with it, and to convince yourself on the stage that you're a specific character. And it's a kind of madness, because you're convincing yourself that you're something that you're not. And yet, it's a useful kind of madness. Because if you want to achieve a character trait that you don't have, if you want to bend your character to your own will, it will need to begin with a lie to yourself. You will need to convince yourself, yes, I do have this trait, and you will need to be like an actor and to act the way that you want to become, to change your yourself, your will, your perception. Now, the third kind of these useful lies to yourself, I'm sure you'll find this one laughable, but it's the martyrs. I think the martyrs are a very interesting thing. I think I'll just finish very soon. I'll probably already overdoing my time, but I'll finish very soon. The martyrs.
Yeah, finish your point.
They're completely and utterly convinced that what they're suffering for is the absolute and unquestionable truth, even though they are still humans, and even though their perception of reality might be flawed. But it doesn't matter to them, because they've convinced themselves to such an extent that they achieve a physical resilience and a physical strength of character that is unmatched by anything else in history. I looked all over history. I can't find anything comparable to the martyrs, to an unbreakable character like the martyrs. So in a way, I find it very admirable. But in another way, I would definitely not want to go there with their footsteps. So those are the three kinds of characters, useful lives to yourself, that I explained in my book. Go ahead, Kay. Sorry, I took over the.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Pavlov. Excellent, guys. So we're gonna move on to Crossfire now. Okay, so it's gonna be a fight.
Points. Well, I've got a couple of points. I didn't start off. Pavlov started off. I should get another turn.
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
I go for okay. So are you okay? So are you guys happy to go to a Crossfire?
Yeah. No problem. Okay.
Go ahead. Okay. Right.
Thank you, Pavlov. So everything you hear is an opinion, but I heard you say that. So therefore, you're not telling the truth. You're just stating an opinion. So I don't have to consider it. So there's that. Also, just because you personally didn't find the truth whilst you were searching for it, whilst I can concede that you're a very intelligent man, you were thorough in your research, it doesn't presuppose the absence of truth. It just presupposes your lack of ability to find it at that point in your life, because obviously, hopefully, you live a long and healthy life. So you said you want people to evolve ideas, and I would, this is a rhetorical question, but I would ask you why. You don't think there's anything true? Why did you even seek out the truth, unless it's when you were a Christian? And if it was when you were a Christian, unfortunately, you had the truth and you looked straight past it to find some worldly set of principles that would explain maybe the absence of truth or a counter argument. Also, martyrs, bless them, like literally bless them. So depending on what you martyr yourself for. So martyrdom in the New Testament and the New Testament is a tribute to the power of the truth. So generally, in terms of civic society, if a woman is raped, for example, which I would say is definitely morally wrong, but obviously you wouldn't, I've heard you discuss that. The point is that they will not just take any random guy in a lineup and go, yeah, he'll do. Like, they want the actual perpetrator to be punished. They want justice, and they want something to be done to reconcile the wrong that's been done. Whereas, so the martyr also could not, I don't believe, have decided to stand upon the truth and defend it, and then said it would have been very easy for them to deny Christ, to say, well, actually, maybe we just had a drink that day, whatever. They didn't do that. They were willing to lay down their lives. And that, for me, is further additional proof of the truth of what they witnessed. Liars don't generally die for their lies. It just doesn't happen unless they're deluded or psychotic. And then we could say it's not actually a lie, it's a figment, or it's some malfunctioning of their brain. And I will end with, I think you said your reasoning might be flawed, or mine might be flawed, or someone's might be flawed. But that's, again, probability. Maybe the martyr's reasoning was flawed, but maybe it wasn't, because #probability. And that's me. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you there.
Jesus.
Thank you, cool. Okay, guys. So we're going to move on to a crossfire rounds now. Cool. And
nice.
That is,
just Q&As basically. So you just ask questions to Pavlov, and obviously just don't build an argument based on her question. Just answer a question straight, directly, basically, as opposed to just engaging in a different debate. So who would like to go first on this crossfire? Pablo? Yeah. Okay. Cool, Pablo. So your 5 minutes of crossfire starts now. 5
minutes? How can I answer? I don't get it.
I mean, I'd like to, before I go,
essentially, it's got. Wait, Pablo. Just to be clear, what's going on. So crossfire. So basically, a 5 minutes. He will have 5 minutes just to throw questions at you, and then obviously you take the time to respond. But he will use those.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I wanted to answer something, but it's fine.
It depends how.
I'll just ignore. I'll just ask questions then. I want to answer what she asked me before. So okay. Yeah, I'll build up my question from here.
Okay, cool. Your mic's okay. Your mic. 5 minutes starts now.
Nice. So as I said before, people are flawed in their perception, and there is my perception, and thus it's also flawed. So you might ask me, why should you trust me in what I'm saying? Well, I would answer you that you should trust me in what I'm saying because I'm trustworthy, because what I'm saying makes sense, because what I'm saying is logical, because I'm giving you logical examples of what I'm saying, and I can give you many more examples of what I'm saying is true. Now, what you're saying is based on what people call dogma. It's based on an absolute idea of truth that is immutable and unchangeable through all of existence, basically. Now, there were many dogmas through human history. That's the big problem. And all of those dogmas have changed to other dogmas, have changed greatly. What I want to ask you now, the big question is, considering that all of those dogmas were so certain that their absolute idea of truth is absolute, and considering that so many of them have failed, and all of them are called by you and the other people who believe in dogmas as lies, unless they're the same as their own. So what kind of authority do you have to make that judgment? Because what it seems to me is that the only creature who would be able to make that judgment is God.
Okay.
Answer the question, please, Kay.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to get to the question part because he made a lot of statements that I don't agree with. So basically, I would say that the truth is always true. If we live in a world where linguistics are a thing, and they are definitely a thing, definitions matter, absolutely matter. So truth cannot be false. There cannot be a falsehood within the truth. You can dress up some truth in a lie, but the truthful part remains truthful, and the lie just clouds out the the manipulation that you might be doing. So the truth is always true. There is no partially truth. Like, truth has to be true. A true statement is always true until the circumstances change, and then maybe retrospectively it was not true at the time. But truth presupposes absolute. You said that trustworthiness implies morality and truth. Oh, and I would answer you, God has the right to state absolute truth. God is absolute truth, and therefore he can't be false, in as much as he won't represent himself wrongly. So trustworthiness, you said that I should accept your opinion based on trustworthiness, but trustworthiness itself implies morality, and it also implies truth, which you only accept on the grounds of probability. And I would say that statistically, if something is probable, it's a spectrum. Statistics go from 0 chance to 100% chance. So when you're saying things are probable, there's a good chance that they're also truthful in 100% absolutely true fashion. So I would answer, in terms of who is lying, who can be right and who can be wrong. When I am told, this is the distinction for me as a Christian. The Bible is absolutely beautiful. Love it. Great book. Go out and buy it, everybody. But the book alone, unlike the Quran, I guess, is not sufficient in terms of, it depicts my Jesus, but it is not my Jesus. My Jesus, the Holy Spirit indwells me. And therefore, I had this discussion this morning, funnily enough, it is a discernment process. So two people, two different churches, two different dogmas, two different worldviews can read the same verses and have a completely different interpretation. Rather than causing chaos, because we know that God isn't a God of chaos, we find that those who have the Holy Spirit tend to discern things in a very similar, or subjectively similar way. So we never see a representation of Christ as evil or as less than perfect. And because he is sinless, without lies, and is wholly trustworthy, I can take his word as to the truth. And if somebody else comes with a false Jesus or a false gospel, then I agree with the New Testament writers that person should be cursed, because they're trying to snatch people from salvation. They're trying to take people toward the devil rather than away from him, where he should be cast out. So I think I answered you. My answer is God. My answer is the truth is the truth, regardless of my perception of it. If I became, a crazy woman tomorrow, what do I mean became? If I remained a crazy woman, whatever. The truth doesn't change because I don't like it. The truth often hurts because people don't like it. And, Christ himself said, if they hate you, it's because they hated me first. Nobody wants to think their bum looks fat in that, basically. The truth is the truth. So,
Thank you, Kay, for that answer. Cool. So Yeah. So now your round of crossfire. So to ask questions to Pablo.
Yeah.
Begins
All right.
now.
So,
5 minutes.
thank you. Take that at all. So I'm just going to let you know, because I forgot to say that Satan. We're told in Revelation 12:9 that Satan has deceived the entire world, and much of the world basically doesn't know he exists. So he has blinded the eyes of those who are lost, so that they cannot see the glorious gospel of Christ, which we see in 2 Corinthians. I guess as a former Christian or a Christian in the making, again, I would ask you if you can accept that premise on the grounds of it could be true, that there is some malevolent force that blinds us to truth, because we know psychologically that addictions and low self-image and self-loathing and all sorts of negative human traits can blind us to the beauty of the actual world. People who are clinically depressed don't see the sunrise in the same way that people who are in love see the sunrise. So I would ask you, can you accept the possibility that there is some external workings that can affect your internal psychology to blind you to truth? Can you see that fat people, like obese people, as they're still shoveling the food in, don't see the truth that they're killing themselves? Like, do you see that truth can be negated by a strong enough delusion? I guess is my question.
I can.
Good answer. Come back to Jesus then. I'm not joking. Okay,
I'm afraid. Okay, look. I'm afraid this is where.
Wait, Pablo, hold on. Okay, you still.
Is it me or is
you
it
still
her?
got 3 minutes to.
No, I asked
No,
you.
she still got 3 minutes
Okay,
to carry on.
She gave me the
questions
clock,
to
so
you.
I thought it was my turn. Okay.
No, that's fine. I asked you the question. Can you? I mean, maybe you could expand on how you then decided, if it's not too personal a question, like you could talk about it generically. Even if you imagine there could be the possibility that something could blind you to the truth, why you would choose to not thoroughly investigate the lie, like the absence of truth, because you must know that truth exists. Truth exists as a human construct, let alone a universal.
Aha! A human construct.
What's the question? Okay.
My statement is this, that even without the knowledge of God, even without it in a sinful, fallen state, children even can know that something is true. So it's at the same time a human construct. We know that we can say that is true. There is a red car there, whatever, without ever thinking about absolute truth and God and, holiness. But at the same time, we know the origin, the source of truth must be moral in essence. It must be an absolute. And as humans, we are not absolutely anything. We're always in a state of flux, as it were, apart from my faith, which can also be stronger on certain days and in certain areas. So I'm asking, as a human construct, if that's your soul worldview, why did you accept, even though knowing there could be absolute truth, why didn't you look for it harder? Why are you content to just have opinions rather than truthful statements? Please.
And okay, sorry.
Oh, he's muted.
Sorry. Go ahead, Pavlov.
I was muted.
Go ahead, Pavlov. Apologies for that. So
it's okay, no problem. Look, okay. This is the reason why people have all these misconceptions about my ideology in Speaker's Corner. I have never denied the possibility of the existence of God. I have never denied the possibility of the existence of absolute truth or of the devil. What I have denied is the perspectives of people. And that's why I deny your perspective, because I don't find it trustworthy enough for me to follow it. I don't find Christianity as a trustworthy enough perspective for me to say what the absolute truth is. Because I think that humans, as the finite beings they are, they don't have an absolute and unquestionable idea of truth. And even if they achieve some kind of reassurance in their lives, it can always be disproven with time and with what comes in the future. Now, you're telling me I should come back to Jesus. Okay, the very reason I stopped believing in Jesus and I stopped being a Christian is why I told you what I just told you. The fact that I am not an atheist who thinks there is the absolute truth of the lack of existence of God, makes me a more opposite person to you than those atheists. Their idea that the existence of God absolutely does not exist is much more similar to your idea that the existence of God absolutely exists, because both deal in absolutes. Thus, my ideology is more opposite to yours than their ideology is. You know what I mean? And my ideology, of course, is always also different to theirs. I'll tell you why. You might have heard this before, but the opposite feeling of love is not hatred; it's apathy. It's not hatred. A hatred is a strong feeling. Your feeling about God is strong. You have conviction in God. The atheists that believe that God doesn't exist have a strong feeling about it, that God doesn't exist. They've convinced themselves of it as an absolute truth. I don't have a strong feeling about the existence or the non-existence of God, because it's not a specific feeling that requires me to waste my strength in. My strength is invested in probability.
Thank you, Pavlov.
That's the question, right?
So now so we're gonna go to a second round of Crossfire. So your second round of 5 minutes to ask questions to Kay begins now, Pavlov.
Very nice, very nice. So yeah, but look, Kay, look, I'm afraid I'll have to come back to the question I asked you last time, because we might disagree about this, but I don't think you answered it. What I asked you was, what authority do you have to tell the people around you that you found the truth if you accept the possibility of you being wrong? So there's this little misconception that's going on here. Hello, who's there? Yeah, okay, somebody spoke. Anyway, there seems to be a little misconception there, because you accept that you are a finite being. You accept that you're just human.
No, I don't. Sorry, you're incorrect.
Okay, but that's okay. Let me correct myself. Because I know why you disagree with what I just told you. You think that your soul is infinite. You think that your existence is infinite in your soul. But let me ask you this, just quick question. Answer it quickly, so I can continue the question. You accept that your perception, your senses, your feelings, in this world, your worldly perception is not perfect. Do you not?
I accept that perception can be misconstrued and can be mistaken, but I also accept that it can be completely, it can perceive truly what is there. So there are verses that talk about the scales being removed from your eyes and your perception being sanctified, basically. So I accept that in a run-of-the-mill sense, yeah, perception can be flawed, but if it can be flawed, it can also be perfected. So, yeah.
Perfected. That's exactly what my ideology is, to perfect the perception of the world. But I don't think there can be an absolute and utter perception of the world. And I'll give you a very quick example about it, which I always give. The sky is blue. Let's imagine that today is a very nice day, that the sky is blue. Everybody can see it as blue, right? Everybody who's not blind, of course, or colorblind. All who can see color, all humans who can see color see it as blue, right? Is that the absolute truth? Well, no, it's not.
Actually, it is.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on. I'm almost finished. I promise I'm almost finished. I promise. The reason for that is I'm not even going to mention the blind or the colorblind. Not even about that. I'm going to mention the retinas of humans that have 3 color receptors. The retinas of butterflies have 6 color receptors. And thus, the butterflies see 2 times more color than humans see. Now, just imagine the possibilities if you have more color receptors in your retinas than even the butterflies. The butterflies don't see the world as we do. Their perception of the world is different. Now, how can we say for absolute certainty that the sky is blue if with the mere addition of a few more color receptors in our eyes, we see the sky as in different colors? That is how simple the reality of this world is to question. And that is why my ideology consists in the achievement of better truths and not absolute truth.
What's the question, Pavlov?
What's the question? What authority do you have of saying that your idea of absolute truth is truly absolute?
Thank you for that, Pavlov.
Okay. I have the authority of the one who revealed it, who is the truth, in my perception, and in the perception of over 1 billion Christians. Also, I'd like to say the sky isn't blue. It's light being reflected from the atmosphere. So whether or not the whole entire world sees a blue sky and the butterflies also see a blue sky, the sky is not blue. That's a fact. But do you know what I mean? Like light bounces into our eyes and is refracted and stuff like that. So the sky isn't blue anyway. Blue is also only relevant if you speak English. So if you're Spanish, azul, or, you know, like, so blue in itself is like quite arbitrary, and it's a subjective statement. And it's also a spectrum, because you can have aquamarine, you can have like navy blue, royal blue. So my perception, I mean, if you put a pencil into a glass of water, you can clearly see the pencil, like, you know, bends. But it has to be a glass, darling, not a cup. But when you take it out, the pencil never was bent. It's just the perception. But thank you so much for your illustration. But everybody will see the same. Where I think you're kind of going wrong is that you see individual perception as flawed, but maybe as a group phenomenon. I mean, you can have mass hysteria, mass delusions. You can have like mind games played to a massive scale, as we see with the mainstream media and stuff like that. So individually, I would trust myself over like my knowledge of truth. Solomon Ash did studies in the 50s whereby he got 10 actors, one real life guy, to come in, and he asked all of them, how long is that stick? And all of the actors lied and said, oh, it's at least 10 inches, whatever. It was actually like 2.5 inches, even though they were men. I'm not going to go there. But the fact is, they all said it was bigger than it was. And when they got to the guy who was the actual test subject, because everybody else had repeated a lie, and he was clearly aware that it was no way, like it was a couple of inches long, he also said it is 10 inches because he didn't want to be an out-grouper. He didn't want to be outside of the normative framework. That can't be said of Christianity, because even though there are like 2.2 billion Christians, there are also 1.4 or 5 or 6 billion Muslims. There are, like, you know, maybe close to 1 billion other faiths put together. So we don't have a majority worldview. We have a worldview that has influenced society for the betterment. So we see that in countries with the corruption index, I think the UN did it in maybe 2015, I'll double check afterwards, or 2011, we see that the countries with the highest levels of corruption are those with the highest restrictions on freedom of worship and religion. So just as an observer, just as an atheistic, agnostic observer of the facts, we see that where religion is practiced correctly, and not only Christianity, where something outside of yourself is deemed to be the truth and you are aspiring to that truth, we see that societies run more smoothly and are less corrupt, because people are not answering to their own selfish desires. They're answering to an outside world. And I guess my question to you is, what am I talking about, Pavlov? Why don't you understand that you are, what, in your 20s, with all due respect, like, just because you don't find something doesn't mean it's not there. There are greater intellects than mine, yours, not JC's, obviously, but there are much deeper thinkers than you and I who have come to the certain knowledge, and those include astrophysicists and, you know, nuclear biologists, whatever. Big-brained people have said I understand you're not denying God, but you know, if you don't deny or confirm, try to lean towards it's probably true and see how you feel. Like, I haven't got a question for you. I just want you to be saved.
Okay, cool. So
and the fact you laugh and I'm nervous when I mention salvation shows to me that it's a something to you. It's not just
It reminds me of my mother when she used to tell me that she would pray for me when I went to do the tests in school.
And did you pass?
Some of them.
Oh, there you go. Excellent.
I mean, I
Thank you,
passed
guys.
all of them, but go ahead.
Maybe your mother's prayers worked.
Maybe I was just good at the subject.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Excellent, guys. Thank you, guys. Just before we move on to the questions from the audience, just wanted to confirm whether you guys are happy to take questions from the audience, because okay, you still have one round of questions for Pablo.
No, we've already run. I'm kidding, Ben. We've gone to like 1:15, so I'm happy for questions. but like I've got maybe 15 minutes, I guess.
Okay, guys. Yeah, sure, of course, excellent. So let me just scroll the messages. So I think okay, so there's a question for you, I think, Pavlov.
And then ask the question.
Yeah, if you guys can just if you got a question, please add at SOCO Films and then in brackets K or Pavlov and your question. So it says question, SOCO Films question for Pavlov. Why do you think you can trust reasonability?
It's a good question.
That's your question.
Right. Why do I think I can trust reasonability? Well, because it's more likely, I would say. You can choose what to trust. You have the choice. In fact, I would say that any religions depend on choice and not on faith. People choose what to put their faith on. Certain people decide to put their faith in Allah. Certain people decide to put their faith in Jesus Christ. It all depends what you choose, really. Well, depends what you see as more likely on what is better for you in your life. Now, why do I think that trusting reasonability is the best choice? Well, because reasonability for me is understanding, is to be able to reason, is to be able to relate different ideas together in a cohesive conclusion, a conclusion that makes sense in terms of the information that you've been given. And I think it's very important to know yourself and know what's around you to be able to make the best choice ever. Now, Sun Tzu writes in his book, The Art of War, know yourself, know thy enemy, 1,000 battles, 1,000 victories. Now, I'm not talking about the enemies necessarily, but I would say it's to understand better to choose.
Excellent. Thank you, Pavlov. Any comments on this quickly?
Yes,
Okay.
I guess I would say that in Nazi Germany, it was reasonable to exterminate Jewish people. I'd also say, no, it really was. It was legal. It was a completely legitimate enterprise. So human reasoning is flawed. When you said something about know yourself and know your enemy, in Christian terms, that's the same person. Like if I look in the mirror and I don't have Christ, I'm looking at my own enemy because I will just drag myself to hell. So on that bombshell, JP.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Kay. So another question, it appears, is directed to Pavlov. So Bible Outreach says, SOCO Films question for Pablo. You earlier said that people tell lies, but does that not presupposes that there is an absolute truth? Because without absolute truth, there is no such thing as a lie. Question for you, Pablo. Your mic.
Good old Ben. How's it going, Ben, my man? Yeah, we had this discussion before, but fair enough. I'll explain it again. So when I say that people lie, I'm explaining my perspective. And as I said before, many times you'll notice, my perspective is not an absolute. And my claim that my perspective is not an absolute is also not an absolute. And you can say, oh, that's a paradox, blah, blah, blah. Well, whatever, man. I just think that my perspective is not an absolute from my perception. You know what I mean? So I think what I say has a reason to be said. I have reasons to say it. Well, of course, you can tell me, no, you're wrong here and here and here. And I'll be like, okay, sure, I'm wrong here. So I'll change my perspective. That's my perspective. That's my worldview. Now, when I say people tell lies, they tell lies from my perspective. They, the lie detector, that's the funny thing about lies. The lie detector doesn't detect when people say absolute lies or not. It detects when people think that they are saying lies. If you convince a person that, this apple right here is actually blue, it's yellow on one side and it's red on the other side, they will actually believe that it's a blue apple. You know what I mean? They will completely believe in it. And when you put them on the lie detector, they will say it's blue. Yes, it's blue. The lie detector will say they're telling the truth, because that's what they think is the truth. You know what I mean? So when I say when people tell lies, I mean people think that they tell lies. People think there's a truth, and they think that they're lying, and they choose to tell those lies because they think that they are lies. I hope that was understandable enough.
Thank you for that, Pavlov. Okay, any follow-up comments to his
Very
answer?
brief ones. Yeah, I would guess, or I wouldn't guess, I would say that there is a difference for me between agreed truths. So civilly, we can all agree that it's wrong to murder someone. If you do so, you should go, be incarcerated in some societies. you should face the same ultimate penalty. But eternal truths are different to that. So we have had many, many instances in our flawed existence where we have all agreed that something is the truth. The earth is indeed the center of the universe, or I don't know, that there are no numbers lesser than zero. Something that we've all agreed upon, or a majority, because the only consensus have agreed upon a civic truth. It is legal to kill a Jewish person because it's 1940s Germany. Something like that. So civil society doesn't dictate to me and to any other Christian the means by which we acknowledge the eternal truths. And the only eternal truths are God and our basically sinful nature. Actually, that's not eternal because prior to the fall. But the fact is that there is an absolute truth, whether we recognize it, whether our perception of it is enhanced or flawed or troubled by Satan, because let's get back to Satan. One of the best deceptions of his is that he does not exist. So whereby he doesn't denounce God, he denounces himself in a counterproductive kind of masochistic way to say to you, but I don't exist. So all of your flaws, all of your sins are all of yourself, and therefore how can you ever desire to worship God in his presence when you're so terribly, sinful and destructive? Because obviously he was once perfect and he isn't anymore, and there's nothing he can do about it. And misery loves company, and sin flourishes in places where the truth is absent. So I guess that if there's even a slight possibility in your very statistical outlook, I'm glad you're not an atheist, basically.
Excellent. Thank you, Kay. So another question. I think I saw a question from Sheikh. From the Sheikh.
Yeah.
Shakespeare. I think it's gone. My goodness. Okay.
The Sheikh, the Muslim guy from the park.
No, not the.
No. It's another Sheikh. Okay, so.
Oh, of
okay,
course,
cool.
silly me, Muslim guys here in the chat.
There is one. Bless him. God bless him.
Cool. Okay, Pavlov. And I think. Okay, SOCO Films. How can we trust his words? So I suppose he's referring to you. As long as he is saying that he don't know for sure, but still he is sure that we are wrong. That's for you, Pablo. And then I will allow Kay to make a commentary, and then from that we move on to your wrap up, and then we close the show. Excellent. Go, Pablo.
Right. So let me reread it again, just so we can get, just so the audience knows, misunderstand the question. So I absolutely understood the question. So how can we trust his words as long as he is saying that he don't know for sure, but still he is sure that we are wrong? Now, first thing first, I didn't say I'm sure that you're wrong. I'm saying that you being wrong in thinking you got the absolute truth is less likely than you being right because of my own perception. Second thing, he is sure. How can we trust him if he's saying that he don't know for sure? Well, you don't have to trust me. And that means that I could be correct. I tell you that I'm not sure, but what if I'm lying? What if I'm not telling you all the truth? I might be sure. You know what I mean? This is the problem. This is the problem of human perception. You can't know whether I'm telling the absolute truth or not. So you'll have to make a judgment on my words. And the judgment in each person is what I speak in my book. Another short, shilling here for The Devil's Game on Amazon for £3 only. You can see the free preview for free. The judgment is what I want to cultivate in people. The judgment to see what's the better truth and what's the worst truth. And if you have a good judgment, and how do you judge what's a good judgment and what's not a good judgment? Well, there's many different definitions for that judgment. Some people prefer to, value their ideals. Some people prefer to value survival. Some people prefer to value love. Some people prefer to value power. Now, there's no absolutely correct answer, I think, from my perspective. It all depends what will be the best choice for you. And that's why when people come to me, when they say that they're no longer sure of their religion, they feel their faith collapse, what I always tell them is this: do what you will regret the least. If to keep lying to the people around you and say that you still believe it is what you'll regret the least, do it. There's no problem in it. You will suffer if you leave a community, you will suffer inevitably. You'll lose some things, but you can also gain some things. Now, yeah, that's the answer I'll give. Go ahead, Kay.
Thank you, Pavlov. Kay, any follow-up comments on this, please?
Yeah, thanks, Sheikh. I'm never going to be an Arabic speaker. Without personifying it to Pavlov, I don't generally trust anybody who's not talking in, I don't know, in terms of probability. Like I've got mathematics qualifications and I'm pretty like up on statistics and stuff like that. But I mean, the joke is that 75% of statistics are made up on the spot, just like the one I did. So numbers and probability and mathematics, in fact, whilst it can't be infiltrated by like political narratives, it can certainly show like imaginary numbers, it can show negative numbers, irrational numbers. There can be numbers that are not conceived naturally, basically, and they can be manipulated, as with accountancy, as with economics, which is basically magic. There's pure math applied. No, it really is. There's like deficits. So there's applied mathematics. There are all forms, but they all reflect true mathematics, if that makes sense. So there is the truth, and perception is such a terribly, it's an easy way out of saying, I can easily say, well, you don't agree with me, therefore you're wrong, or you don't agree with my friend, therefore, you're right, because I don't agree with them at the moment. But the fact that learned, erudite men, who I respect an awful lot, have looked into this with deep understanding and with the aid of the Holy Spirit. And there are atheists who have also come to God and moved to white, former Christians and stuff like that, whose words still have truth to them. And I would say that there's a massive distinction between searching for the truth, which you presuppose there is a truth, you just can't find it yet, or on probability, there's no such thing as truth, which I believe is a false statement. And by believing it's false, that implies that there is a true statement to be made somewhere. I'm waffling at this point, but what I would say is, I don't think Pavlov thinks we're all wrong. I think that maybe youthfulness has given him a certainty which he's not entitled to, and please God, without too much trauma, he has a wake-up call, because we all do when we come out of our 20s, I guess. I don't know.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Kay. So okay, so we're gonna do your conclusion, and I like Pablo to go first.
Yeah.
And then you have the conclusion. Yeah, cool. And I do apologize for the if your questions went when asked, but we're quite conscious about the time. Plus, I think Sis Hatun is also doing a live show pretty soon as well, so we don't want it to clash with that. So with that in mind, Pablo, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to do your wrap up, and or would you like 3 minutes?
Fair enough.
Yep.
If there's any questions that haven't been answered, you can always ask me on my channel, Pavlov in Response. I'll leave the link in the description later. Not in the description, in the comments a bit later. So
okay.
To end this, to end this, I would like to if there's any Portuguese speakers in the chat here who know Portuguese, I'd like to recommend the book. It's called O Toxicologista by Gonçalo M. Tavares. He's a Portuguese writer, and it's an amazing book. It's one of the best books I've ever read in my life, personally. And it's from a Portuguese author, which is the specific text that I will mention you real quickly, just to, is a text where a man thinks that he knows everything. Now, he speaks to another person. So their dialogue goes like this. Man, I know everything, just everything. I know absolutely everything, no exception at all. And it's painful. It's like something's wrong with me. How can you know everything? And the other person, well, indeed, there seems to be something wrong with you, because knowing everything is like a crazy state of mind, something almost inhuman. Maybe we could get a way out of it. And the other man, oh yeah, please, do you know how I can not know everything? And the other person says, yes, I have a book here with the names of people with which you have to speak, and when you speak with them, you will become stupider, and you will no longer know everything. So in that, you will be cured. And that guy, oh yeah, please tell me. I want to know that those people. I want to not know everything anymore. So he starts reading and says, oh, I'm sorry, your name is here. Now, the conclusions you make about that specific text are up to the audience. Read the book. And might you know, The Devil's Game on Amazon.
Thank you, Pablo. You still got 18 seconds if you want to use that, but yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'll give it up.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for that conclusion, Pablo. Kay, your 2 minutes starts now. Wrap up.
Thank you. So back to the original topic, I guess, the biblical rather than Christian, like the biblical perception and depiction of Satan is the father of lies, and the mere use of the word lie presupposes the truth, who is Christ. So in that way, it's a very neat counter narrative. Our perception of ourselves is flawed in terms of God's perception of us. God is, he loves us with a boundless love that knows, he's willing to sacrifice himself, his son, for us as an atonement. He loves us to the point where it hurts, and then he carries on loving us. And my only experience of any kind of self-sacrificing love, I guess, is as a granddaughter and a mother, a sister and a daughter. Like, I can imagine dying for my daughter, for sure. I can imagine it, but I can't imagine dying for people I don't know, who hate me, who don't trust that my words are true. And that is what God has got going on. God has come and he died for everyone, that the whole world may come to him, and yet we know that he already knows the outcome. He is timeless and eternal, and his self-sacrificing is completely awesome to me, and I can't fathom it. And just because my perception can't get my head around it doesn't mean it isn't true, because I have found in my life that many times I don't understand things such as LGBT, left-wing politics, but it doesn't mean there isn't some valid explanation of all this nonsense. I just don't know it. And just because I don't see something as true doesn't mean it's not true. I've had time, self-image can be completely warped. There are people with body dysmorphia who look at themselves in the mirror and they're completely beautiful and they see something grotesque. And my last thing I would say is, as we speak to the Christians in the chat, as we speak to fellow human beings, as we speak to other Christians, be aware that we are contributing to either their eternal salvation or their damnation. And C.S. Lewis says that if we could see what they are to become, we would either worship them in their heavenly state, or we would, have a heart attack, basically, if we saw them as a condemned soul in hell. So to be aware that our words should remain loving and kind and necessary, and, all the fruits of the Spirit that we enjoy as Christians, we should definitely love our enemies and our neighbours alike. And I would like to bless all of you in the name of Christ.
Amen to that. Thank you.
JC,
thank you, guys.
GC, I know I shouldn't, but let me just quickly interrupt. About LGBT, if you want to know what they are, I can ask you very quickly, and you can check out if my answer is correct or not. It's subversion. And if you want to know more about that, check out Yuri Bezmenov on YouTube. He's an ex-KGB agent, and he speaks about subversion a lot. And there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Anyway, excellent. Thank you for that recommendation.
I mean, I don't understand.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that, guys. Thank you, Pablo, for joining the show. Thank you, CSK. Guys, by all means, subscribe to Pablo. The link to his channel is on the description box, as well as CSK's channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to her, what are you waiting for? And also, if you have a link that you would like to share, Pablo, so that the viewers can go and search your book, by all means, you can also click on the comment section, and and I can pin it to help you promote it. No problem.
I'll put it there.
Yeah, cool. So, family, our next live stream would be with Rob Christian, potentially. We're going to be sending an open debate challenge to the Muslims on whether the Quran teaches Tawhid. So stay tuned for that one. I will make an announcement towards the end of the week, and then hope to see you all on that live chat, live debates.
Thanks for having me. See you next time, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, admins, Captain Bloodfire, Miss Piggy, Frog, Oleg, all you guys. You guys are awesome. Alan Mungos, No Leopard, all you guys. Thank you. Longinus of Jerusalem. And by all means, check out his book, The Devil's Game, which is on Amazon. And give your commentary on his book. Excellent, wonderful. Yeah, a very nice painting, actually.
Thank you. I made all the drawings myself, huh?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, you got talent for drawing.
Thank you.
Very good. Excellent, guys. Guys, thank you. God bless Captain Bloodfire. God bless Martin. All the best to you guys. See you soon. Take care. God bless
Captain Bloodfire, my man. Captain Bloodfire.
Big up
God
yourself.
bless you. Goodbye. Thank you.